I've seen car accidents with better coordination than this meeting. Brad Thompson leaned back in his Herman Miller chair, spinning his Apple Watch like he was timing my professional execution. Uninspired vanilla corporate bullshit, he said, flicking my 25-page strategic report across the mahogany table like it was a McDonald's napkin. It hit the surface with a slap that sucked all the oxygen from the room. 25 pages of blood, sweat, and Excel formulas. Late nights fueled by Starbucks venti Pike Place and determination. Real solutions to real problems, reduced to a projectile insult by a man who probably couldn't spell strategy without autocorrect. I didn't flinch. Not outwardly. 3 years climbing the corporate ladder at Harrison Associates had taught me one thing: never let them see you bleed. But inside was a dam cracking under pressure, holding back years of stolen credit and swallowed pride. Brad leaned forward, his $1,000 Tom Ford suit catching the conference room light. Look, Sarah, I appreciate the effort. Really, but this isn't innovation. This is playing it safe. We're not here to maintain the status quo, we're here to obliterate it. That weaponized smile, the same one he used when he stole my client retention algorithm last quarter and presented it as his gut instinct breakthrough. The same smile that said, "You're a child who just wet herself at the school play." I kept my eyes locked on his, even as my stomach twisted into knots. Around the table, my so-called colleagues suddenly found their Fiji water bottles fascinating. Lisa from compliance, who'd helped shape this proposal. Mike from operations, who'd praised it in private. Jenny from marketing, who'd called it brilliant over lunch at Panera. Under Brad's spotlight, they were silent as tombstones. Sarah, Brad said, standing to adjust his blazer. We didn't bring you here to write an instruction manual. We brought you here to be a disruptor. Right now, you're not disrupting anything. He tapped my report again. Try harder. The silence that followed felt like standing inside a jet engine. Then he did something worse than insulting my work. He winked. That smug little eye twitch, like we shared some inside joke. Like I was supposed to laugh along with his performance. It was the same wink he'd given when he'd stolen my work, repackaged it, and sold it to the board as his own vision. The wink of a man who'd built his career strip mining the minds of people like me. I made it to the restroom without breaking. Locked myself in the handicap stall and stared at the door like it was a portal to another dimension. One where merit mattered, where small kings didn't rule empires built on stolen ideas and buzzword bullshit. For 3 minutes, I sat there. Then the tears came, not ugly crying, just silent drops of rage too compressed to scream. I'd given him everything, missed my nephew's birthday to finish quarterly projections, pulled all-nighters to fix supply chain disasters Brad had created with his innovative vendor cuts. I wasn't just competent, I was the backbone of their last 4 profitable quarters. And he'd called me vanilla. The following Tuesday, Brad strutted into the boardroom like he'd just invented capitalism. He carried a fresh strategy packet with a glossy navy cover. My stomach dropped before he even spoke, because I knew it was mine. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced, placing packets in front of each board member like he was dealing winning poker hands. What you're about to see is bold, aggressive, and unapologetically visionary. I watched stone-faced as he clicked his remote and launched into my presentation. Same skeleton, but he'd stripped out the risk controls, inflated the projections to fantasy levels, and added enough buzzwords to choke a MBA student. Omni-channel customer journey optimization, he said. Synergistic value proposition pivot. Those were my words, my analysis, my late nights and weekend research. But now it was coming out of his mouth, dressed in manic overconfidence and a suit that cost more than my car payment. The board ate it up. Nodding like dashboard bobbleheads, throwing around phrases like game-changing and paradigm shift. They'd just discovered fire and Brad was their Prometheus. After the meeting, I cornered him by the elevator. Behind him hung a motivational poster: success is 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. The irony almost made me laugh. Brad, I said, voice steady as surgical steel. You took my plan, word for word in some places. He grinned like I'd complimented his tie. I improved it. You butchered it, removed every safeguard, inflated every projection. That's not innovation, that's financial suicide with a PowerPoint deck. His expression didn't change, not even a flicker. Sarah, if you want to have this conversation, we can have it in my office. I knew what that meant. The execution chamber. I followed anyway. His office reeked of overpriced cologne and delusion. He sat behind his desk like a king on a throne, giving me that faux patient look he reserved for difficult women and quarterly reviews. Look, he began, I get it. You're upset. You feel unheard. I wasn't unheard, Brad. I was robbed. Careful, he said, holding up a manicured finger. This attitude is exactly what's holding you back. You're talented, Sarah, but you're also combative. Negative. You see problems instead of solutions. I actually laughed. That was the solution. The one you just stole. He stood, walked around his desk like a priest performing last rites. You know what your problem is. You think being right is enough. But perception is reality, and right now, you're coming across as bitter and ungrateful. He opened his office door wide. The hallway buzzed with mid-morning chaos, people shuffling with the Dunkin' Donuts and fake purpose. Then he said it, loud enough for half the floor to hear. Sarah, this just isn't working out. Your attitude is toxic, and your behavior is insubordinate. You're fired. The hallway went dead silent. Someone's coffee mug hit the floor. An intern gasped. Then came the killing blow, you'll never work in this town again. Like he was some Hollywood mogul instead of a middle management fraud in a rented suit. I should have screamed, should have called him what he was, a thief in $1,000 threads. But my body shut down. A defense mechanism carved by years of corporate warfare. So I walked, slow, deliberate steps to the elevator, clutching my laptop like a life preserver. When the doors closed, I didn't cry. I laughed, a hollow sound that echoed in the mirrored box. Because I'd just realized something, he hadn't fired me. He'd lit the fuse. There's a specific kind of silence that settles over your apartment the first week of unemployment. It's not peaceful, it's suffocating. Like being buried alive in your own life. You start counting time by Netflix episodes and how long shadows take to crawl across your hardwood floors. I told myself it was temporary. Just a speed bump before the job offers rolled in. But by week 3, the silence had teeth. I'd applied to 37 positions. Heard back from 3. One was a bot response that called me, Dear Candidate Number 1247. Another was a recruiter for a revolutionary wellness startup who ghosted me after I asked about health benefits. The third wanted me to work for exposure and kombucha. My reputation meant nothing. Years of building actual results, real metrics, genuine wins, erased. Like I'd never existed. Or worse, like I existed with a scarlet letter tattooed across my LinkedIn profile, difficult woman who dared to speak up. The paranoia crept in slowly, then all at once. Brad played golf with half the executives in our industry. He'd once bragged about having a red list for problem employees. I used to think I was too valuable to make that list. Now I wasn't sure. My checking account became a countdown timer. First to go, DoorDash and those $7 oat milk lattes that tasted like liquid cardboard. Then my gym membership, then Netflix, then my co-working space subscription. By week 5, I was living on ramen and boxed wine, sitting cross-legged on my couch at 2 a.m., scrolling through job boards that felt like dating apps for sociopaths. Seeking a rock star. Translation, we'll work you to death for peanuts. Dynamic, fast-paced environment. Translation, chaos with a ping-pong table. Every posting felt like a door I couldn't open without swallowing what was left of my pride. One night, desperate and 3 glasses deep into a Trader Joe's Pinot Grigio, I opened my old work files. Found the original version of my strategic plan, the one Brad had stolen and butchered. My fingerprints were all over it. The logic, the research, the careful projections. It was good, damn good. And it didn't matter, not anymore. I stared at the screen until my eyes blurred, then laughed that same hollow sound from the elevator. My sanity was tap dancing on thin ice, and I could hear it cracking. That's when I saw it. A job posting I'd bookmarked but never touched. Too sketchy, too vague. Seeking discreet strategic analyst with corporate restructuring experience. High compensation. Confidentiality mandatory. Send portfolio to acquisition@phoenixcorp.com. No company name. No LinkedIn trail. Just a clinical email address and a promise. My gut said scam. My brain said waste of time. But my heart, the part still clinging to professional dignity, said, what the hell do you have left to lose? I opened a blank document and started typing. Not a cover letter, a manifesto. 3 years of swallowed truths poured out like I was performing an exorcism. No corporate speak, no buzzwords, just brutal, surgical honesty. I dissected Harrison Associates like a coroner on deadline. The manipulated cash flows, the fantasy projections, the toxic culture that rewarded theft and punished integrity. I pulled receipts, embedded charts, cited meeting notes Brad thought were buried. I included everything I'd been too professional to say out loud. At the end, I wrote one sentence, if you want to know what's really rotting inside Harrison Associates, I'm your analyst. But I won't beg. I hit send before I could second guess myself. For 4 seconds, I felt weightless. Like I'd thrown a brick through the window of a mansion that had locked me out. Then I crashed on my couch and passed out to the sound of my ancient window AC unit and a true crime podcast about a woman who burned down her cheating husband's car dealership. The next morning, I'd forgotten I even sent it. 36 hours later, I got a reply. One sentence. We've been waiting for someone like you, comma. The call came 2 hours after that email. No pleasantries, no HR script. Just a voice that sounded like it had personally negotiated with Fortune 500 CEOs before breakfast. Sarah Mitchell, this is Helena Cross, Senior Partner at Phoenix Corporate Solutions. We need to meet, today. Before I could ask questions, she continued, a car will pick you up in 1 hour. Wear something professional. And Sarah, bring your appetite for justice. The line went dead. An hour later, I was in the back of a black Tesla Model S that smelled like new leather and clean money. The driver handed me a bottle of Evian with no label and said nothing the entire ride. We pulled into an underground garage beneath a glass tower I'd never noticed before. No signage, no corporate branding, just steel and mirrored windows that seemed to judge people for breathing inefficiently. Inside, the office looked like a war room designed by someone who'd watched too many spy movies. No plants, no motivational posters. Just sleek tables, soundproofed walls, and the quiet hum of servers processing data like it owed them money. Women in sharp suits moved with surgical precision. No one chatted by the coffee machine. No one looked up from their screens. Then Helena Cross walked in. She wore a charcoal gray suit so perfectly tailored it could have been painted on. Her silver hair was pulled back in a way that said, I've ended careers before lunch. Her heels didn't click, they commanded. She walked straight to me. No handshake, no small talk. Your manifesto, she said, holding up a bound copy of my late-night confessional. It's the most precise demolition of Harrison Associates I've ever read. We've been circling them for 8 months, waiting for an opening. I blinked. You were already planning to take them down. She smiled, barely. Let's just say we specialize in liberating underperforming assets from incompetent leadership. She gestured to a chair. We don't want to hire you as an employee, Sarah. We want you as our lead strategist. You'll direct the acquisition, oversee the restructuring, and manage the post-takeover transition. I stared at her, trying to process if this was real or some elaborate fever dream. You want me to help you gut the company that fired me? No, she said, leaning forward. We want you to save it. After we remove the cancer. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than rage or despair. Something colder, something that felt like steel sliding into place. What exactly are you proposing? Helena opened a tablet and slid it across the table. On the screen, financial reports, acquisition models, internal communications. They'd been watching Harrison Associates longer than I'd been working there. Phoenix Corporate Solutions acquires failing companies and turns them around. We've done it 47 times. But we've never had someone on the inside who knows exactly where the bodies are buried. She paused, studying my face. Brad Thompson has been hemorrhaging money for 2 years, covering it up with creative accounting and stolen strategies. You documented most of it in your manifesto without even realizing it. So what's my role? You're our scalpel. You cut out the infection, and we provide the resources to heal what's left. I looked at the tablet, saw my future reflected in those spreadsheets and acquisition plans. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about justice. When do we start? Helena's smile was sharp as a blade. We already have. Welcome to Phoenix, Sarah. That night, they flew me first class to their operations center in Chicago. I had a corner suite in a glass tower with a view of Lake Michigan and a manila folder waiting on the desk. Inside, a complete organizational chart of Harrison Associates. Every department, every manager, every budget line. Even HR complaints that had been buried in Brad's email vault. I sat under the LED lights, staring at the evidence of my new reality. I wasn't just back in the game. I was holding the playbook. And Brad Thompson had no idea the reckoning was coming. The next 3 weeks blurred into 18-hour days fueled by black coffee and the quiet satisfaction of surgical precision. I wasn't just working, I was performing an autopsy on a company that was already dead, finding the few healthy organs worth saving. Phoenix gave me a team of 5 financial analysts, each one sharper than a hedge fund and twice as ruthless. We weren't consultants. We were corporate surgeons, and Harrison Associates was our patient. Every department's numbers were dragged into the light. Software licenses, inventory counts, vendor contracts, even Slack message logs. Nothing was sacred. Nothing escaped. And buried in a cluster of expense reports from Brad's executive account, I found her. Strategic Consulting Services minus $9,500 monthly retainer. Same line item, month after month. At first glance, it looked legitimate. Overpriced, but legitimate. But I dug deeper. The company address, a UPS store in Scottsdale. The tax ID was registered to someone named Amber Stevens. I clicked her LinkedIn out of professional curiosity. Of course, blonde, early 30s, former Instagram model turned business transformation coach. Zero corporate credentials, plenty of bikini photos next to quotes like, "Your only limit is your mindset." A reverse image search revealed her tagged in photos with Brad at various charity galas. Always in dresses that screamed, expense account, usually with captions about strategic partnerships and visionary leadership. I cross-referenced the consulting payments with Brad's corporate credit card. 2 matches, weekend, business retreats, at luxury resorts in Napa and Aspen. One receipt even listed couples massages as executive alignment sessions. I printed every receipt, stapled them together, and labeled the folder in red Sharpie, fraud, Exhibit A. But even as I documented Brad's stupidity in increasingly creative formats, the work evolved into something bigger. Because underneath his circus of ego and embezzlement, there were people trying to keep the company alive. Operations had 3 unsung heroes managing a 10-person workload. They'd quietly renegotiated vendor contracts, cut material costs by 18%, and never asked for credit. HR had a mid-level manager named Patricia who'd been fighting to keep sexual harassment complaints from disappearing into Brad's digital shredder. Finance had a soft-spoken woman named Dorothy, age 58, who'd been manually correcting quarterly reports that Brad had adjusted to look prettier for board meetings. I made lists: keep, reassign, terminate, investigate. It felt clinical at first. But slowly, methodically, a picture emerged. I wasn't just planning corporate warfare, I was designing a resurrection. One night, staring at the Chicago skyline from my hotel room, I realized something had shifted. The old me, the polite corporate soldier who'd swallowed insults and smiled through theft, was gone. In her place was someone who knew exactly where to swing the axe. And more importantly, who was worth saving when the cutting was done. The woman I was becoming didn't just want Brad Thompson's head on a platter. She wanted to build something better from the ashes of his empire. I finished my wine, a decent Malbec that didn't come from a box, and opened my laptop. Time to write the battle plan. By morning, I had a 40-page restructuring proposal that would save the company and destroy Brad Thompson's career in one surgical strike. All I had to do was deliver it. The elevator doors opened with a whisper. I stepped into the lobby of Harrison Associates wearing armor disguised as business attire. Black Louboutin heels, black theory suit, hair pulled back in a way that meant business. No jewelry except my grandmother's pearl earrings, the ones she wore when she testified against her crooked business partner in 1987. The receptionist, Melissa, looked up from her computer and froze mid-keystroke. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed. She'd once complimented my shoes, then forwarded my confidential emails to Brad without telling me. I didn't stop walking. My heels clicked across the marble like a countdown timer. The acquisition had gone through that morning. Clean, quiet, professional. Phoenix Corporate Solutions didn't believe in dramatic entrances, they believed in results. At 9 a.m., every executive had received the same email. Effective immediately, Phoenix Corporate Solutions holds controlling interest in Harrison Associates. Leadership restructuring begins today. But now I was here in the flesh, and people were noticing. I passed the break room where I'd once stress-eaten a sleeve of saltines after Brad had stolen my quarterly projections. Today, someone inside dropped their yogurt cup. Whispers started spreading like wildfire. I turned toward the executive wing. It still smelled like expensive cologne and bad decisions. Brad's assistant, Jennifer, stood up to block my path. Ms. Mitchell, Mr. Thompson is in a meeting. I walked past her like she was a houseplant. And there he was, Brad Thompson, leaning back in his leather throne, sipping a green smoothie like it gave him superpowers. He was actually laughing at something on his phone screen. Then he looked up. I watched his brain work in real time. First confusion, then recognition, then something that looked like fear wrapped in designer stubble. Sarah, his voice cracked slightly. What are you doing here? I walked to his desk and placed a manila folder on the polished surface. Inside, his expense reports, annotated, highlighted, and cross-referenced with bank statements, hotel receipts, and photos of him with Amber Stevens. His hand hovered over the folder like it might explode. Is this some kind of joke? He asked, voice thin as paper. I spoke for the first time since entering his office. You have 15 minutes to review those documents. Then you'll join me in conference room A for a brief discussion about your future with this company. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. Oh, and Brad. I turned at the door. IT is monitoring every keystroke. Don't delete anything. Don't call anyone. Don't even think about running. I left him sitting there, staring at the evidence of his own stupidity. Outside his office, 2 junior executives were pretending not to eavesdrop. They saw my face and scattered like pigeons. 15 minutes later, Brad stumbled into the conference room looking like he'd aged 5 years. His perfect hair was disheveled, his tie slightly askew. "Sarah," he began, "I think there's been a misunderstanding. Sit down." He sat. I opened my laptop and pulled up a presentation. The title slide read, Harrison Associates, Post-Acquisition Restructuring Plan. "This company is about to undergo significant changes," I said. "The question is whether you'll be part of the solution or part of the problem." His eyes darted between me and the laptop screen. "Look, if this is about what happened before, I think we can work something out." Maybe I was hasty. "You were criminal," I said quietly. "Embezzlement, fraud, sexual harassment cover-ups." Should I continue? The color drained from his face. "But here's the thing, Brad. Phoenix doesn't want a scandal. They want results. So you have 2 choices." I clicked to the next slide. Option 1, you resign immediately. We'll call it a strategic transition. You'll get a modest severance and a non-disclosure agreement. You walk away quietly, and this folder never sees the light of day. Clicked again. Option 2, you stay and face the restructuring process, which includes a full audit of your performance, your expenses, and your management practices. Everything goes public. The board, the shareholders, the SEC, they all get copies. I leaned forward. "What's it going to be?" Brad stared at the folder like it contained his death sentence. Which, in a way, it did. I need time to think." "You have 60 seconds. He looked up at me, and for the first time in 3 years, I saw him clearly. Not the confident executive, not the smooth-talking manipulator, just a scared man who'd built his career on stolen ideas and corporate fraud. "I'll resign," he whispered. I closed the laptop. Smart choice. As he signed the resignation letter with shaking hands, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not triumph, not satisfaction, just relief that it was finally over. The all-hands meeting was scheduled for 3 p.m. By 2:45, the main conference room was packed tighter than a subway car during rush hour. Word had spread through the office like wildfire. The woman Brad had fired was back, and she was apparently in charge. I stood at the podium, looking out at a sea of faces. Some curious, some worried, some trying to hide behind their smartphones. In the front row, 3rd seat from the left, sat Patricia from HR, the woman who'd tried to protect harassment victims. She caught my eye and nodded slightly. "My name is Sarah Mitchell," I began, my voice carrying clearly through the room. "Some of you remember me. I used to be your senior strategic analyst until I was terminated for what Mr. Thompson called lack of vision." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. People shifted in their seats. Today, Phoenix Corporate Solutions finalized its acquisition of Harrison Associates. I've been appointed as lead transition consultant. What that means is simple: this company now has new leadership, new priorities, and new standards. I paused, letting that sink in. My first announcement: we will be implementing the comprehensive strategic overhaul I submitted 6 months ago. The same plan that was dismissed as vanilla corporate bullshit will now guide our path forward. A few people in the back exchanged glances. Someone whispered, "Holy shit." "But here's what's really changing," I continued. "We're done with the culture of theft, intimidation, and incompetence that has defined this company's leadership. We're done with stolen ideas, covered-up harassment, and fraudulent expense reports." The room was dead silent now. Effective immediately, several changes will take place. First, we're promoting Patricia Williams to Director of Human Resources. She'll be implementing new policies to ensure every employee feels safe and valued. Patricia's eyes went wide. Spontaneous applause broke out around her. Second, we're establishing a whistleblower protection program. Anyone who reports misconduct will be protected, not punished. Those days are over. More applause, louder this time. Third, we're implementing profit sharing for all employees. When this company succeeds, you succeed. When you contribute to our growth, you'll be rewarded for it. Now the applause was sustained, enthusiastic. People were actually smiling. Finally, I said, raising my voice over the noise, I want to address the elephant in the room. Brad Thompson submitted his resignation this morning. He will not be replaced. Instead, we're restructuring leadership to be more collaborative, more transparent, and more accountable. Someone in the middle of the room actually cheered. I know change is scary, I continued. But I also know this: every single person in this room has ideas that have been ignored, contributions that have been overlooked, and potential that has been wasted. That ends today. I looked out at the faces staring back at me. Some were crying, some were laughing. All of them looked like they'd been holding their breath for years and could finally exhale. We're going to build something better here. Something honest. Something that rewards merit instead of manipulation. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it. I stepped back from the podium. Thank you for your time. Department heads, please stay behind for transition planning. Everyone else, welcome to the new Harrison Associates. The applause was thunderous. As people filed out, chattering excitedly about the changes, I caught a glimpse of someone watching from the hallway. Brad Thompson, carrying a banker's box, flanked by security. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. Our eyes met for just a moment. He nodded once, not apologetically, but with something that might have been respect. Then he was gone. 3 months later, I was sitting in my new office, Brad's old office, completely redecorated, reviewing quarterly reports. Revenue was up 18%. Employee satisfaction scores had doubled. We'd landed 3 major new clients who'd specifically mentioned our culture of integrity as a deciding factor. My assistant knocked on the door. Ms. Mitchell, there's someone here to see you. Helena Cross walked in, carrying 2 cups of coffee and a smile I'd never seen before. Congratulations, she said, handing me a cup. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've never seen a turnaround this clean. It wasn't about the turnaround, I said. It was about the people. She nodded. The best revenge stories usually are. I looked out the window at the city below. Somewhere out there, Brad Thompson was probably interviewing for junior positions, trying to explain the gap in his resume. The story would follow him, not because I'd spread it, but because the truth has a way of traveling. You know what the best part is? I said. What's that? I'm not the same person who got fired 6 months ago. That woman was brilliant, but she was also afraid. Afraid to rock the boat, afraid to demand better, afraid to believe she deserved more. I turned back to Helena. This woman, she's not afraid of anything. And for the first time in my entire career, that was completely true. The real stars of the corporate jungle are the ones who know when to strike back. Thanks for watching this transformation from victim to victor. Hit that subscribe button, or I'll audit your expense reports.